My name is Ahmed Adam Othman, and today I am here to talk about war and propaganda. In this video, my focus will be the 2003 invasion into Iraq. There are several different answers to why the 2003 invasion into Iraq occurred, but to grasp a correct understanding, it is important that we assess every purpose of the war and cross-reference it with the facts. Firstly, George Bush in 2002 stated that we will not allow any terrorist or tyrant to threaten civilization with weapons of mass destruction. At the time, corporate news companies and media conglomerates under the control and the influence of the American government swayed public opinion to believe that such a statement was true. Officials came up with many reasons why Americans must fight, which it was designed to rally support for a war of choice. According to Susan Brewer, the administration's case for the war rested on three principal motives. It was quite clear that the September 11 attack on the World Trade Center was used as a pretext to invade Iraq. It was from this the War on Terror began. It was described by Bush as a clash between civilization and barbarism, where the World Trade Center was described as a symbol of Western freedom. The second motive was the fear of Saddam using weapons of mass destruction. There was a claim that Saddam Hussein was tied to terrorist network organizations like Al-Qaeda and similar. Ironically, it was the same United States that supported such terrorist organizations against the Soviet Union during the Cold War. The same United States government that supported Saddam Hussein during the decade-long Iran-Iraq war. The last motive was to spread the benefits of freedom and democracy across the globe. Now, was this true? Or was there other covert reasons? Other purposes in which the Bush administration was not telling the public? For instance, was it the expansion of US influence in the Middle East and the Gulf region? What international relations theorists would call a containment policy to put an end to the increasing regional power of Middle Eastern states like Iran.
This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
Were there economic interests? Now we all understand that a free flow of Iraqi oil to world markets would benefit the US and UK major oil conglomerates. Finally, was it really to free the Iraqi people from Saddam Hussein, even though he was an ally of the US a decade earlier? By the end of this video, I will let you, the viewer, make that judgment yourself.
We've made the decision we're going to war with Iraq. This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, we're going to war with Iraq. Why? He said, I don't know. He said, I guess they don't know what else to do.
Although the movie Fair Game does not give a detailed account of the Iraq 2003 invasion, it still provides an accurate understanding of the events which led up to the war. The factual basis of the film has been criticized only in areas of specificity. In saying that, however, the general theme that was captured effectively was that the United States deliberately misused information during the run-up to the war. In the book, Why America Fights Patriotism and War Propaganda from the Philippines to Iraq, Susan also reaffirms this as a reason for going to war. Susan provides a State of Union address which claimed that Niger had signed a deal with Iraq for the sale of yellowcake uranium. This was a necessary ingredient in the uranium enrichment process that could lead to the development of a nuclear bomb. This was accurate in the movie, as she also suggests that the CIA director, George Tenet, discredited this claim and interceded once to remove this from the presidential speech. The book also confirms with the movie that the United States funded a separate organization, what came to be known as INC, Iraqi National Congress, whom produced Iraqi defectors that said Iraq had mobile biological weapons laboratories in pursuit of reconstituting its nuclear weapons programs. This argument was later rejected when no such programs existed. One of the most prominent ideas that is reflected in the film is the ability of the government to merge the military and media industry. How wars are covered or covered up is an important factor for analyzing any particular war. The film's message about the war is quite direct. It translates to viewers that the ordinary method of warfare has changed, that the invasion of Iraq did not just occur with military tools such as guns, bombs, tanks, shock and awe, but rather another war was going on simultaneously. This was a media war, which included cameras, lights, journalists, and the whole cohort. Why is propaganda used is a fundamental question that should be asked by every curious mind. It is clear that very few governments would deny that suppressing information, producing propaganda to win consent and maintain support for the war are features of military conflict. If public opinion and the international community is not rallying behind the war, then it would be difficult for governments to continue operations that exist overseas. Another reason that propaganda is used is that journalists are impartial and independent monitors of military conduct. Independent war reporting has been a problem for governments since the early 1850s. William Howard Russell was an independent war reporter for the Crimean War and had revealed the atrocious military leadership and the poor conditions of the soldiers. This led to the resignation of the British general and the collapse of the government. So it is clear that propaganda becomes an effective tool not just through shaping public perception, but also shadowing the truth, a tool which can be used for censorship and distraction. The propaganda machine that was controlled and screened by the government extended to popular cable and news networks. This consisted of Fox News, CNN, NBC, and various other forms of propaganda. The Pentagon made media management an important priority. It went beyond public relations and used marketing strategies and perception management. It was all to guarantee that there was one narrative in the media amongst the states in the coalition of the willing. Another important part of the propaganda is the language that was used by media officials, military officials, and members of the Bush administration. For example, Bush would employ political rhetoric and compare Iraqi governance to fascism and Saddam to Hitler. The language of manipulation and repetition was used to deploy mistrust and hatred. For instance, the term death squad was used for the Iraqi military forces, and liberation replaced the term occupation. Another form of propaganda was that the United States dropped leaflets and radio broadcasts all over Iraq, which put blame on Saddam for the suffering of the people of Iraq. There was more of a focus on the war propaganda back at home than there was actually evaluating the invasion tactics and strategies. It was most certainly effective. The blurring of news, propaganda, and entertainment helped the administration to sell Operation Iraqi Freedom, which was a false pretext for invading Iraq. In terms of the Bush administration's effect on major news channels, Christiane Amanpour, a news reporter for CNN, says this.
Yes, I think the press was muzzled, and I think the press self-muzzled. I'm sorry to say, but certainly television, and perhaps to an extent my station, was intimidated by the administration and its foot soldiers at Fox News. And it did, in fact, put a climate of fear and self-censorship, in my view, in terms of the kind of broadcast work we did. Talk about...
Furthermore, it was so effective amongst the American people that the polls in March 2002 showed that 53 to 70% of Americans believed that Saddam Hussein was personally behind September 11. And 50% thought majority of the hijackers were Iraqis. Moreover, 64% of Americans favored military action, and of that 64%, 33% approved military action without its allies. This video will exemplify the political climate amongst American citizens during the Iraq invasion.
What about us? Do you care about every human being here? It's September 11th. You're at ground zero.
If they do something to us, then we're not going to do nothing back. But we're not going to do nothing back.
They didn't do anything. Iraq did not do shit to America. So you're saying it's okay to kill innocent people?
Listen, if it's for a better good, let's do it.
Yeah, I volunteered. You know why?
To keep your ass free. To keep your hippie ass free. He puts his life on the line.
The book Why America Fights by Susan Brewer is a perfect book for analyzing the relationship between war and propaganda. It provides a historical account of how propaganda was used by the United States since the Philippine-America War to the 2003 invasion of Iraq. Susan debunks each argument that was used by the Bush administration to justify the occupation. It verifies the accuracy of fair game by establishing that Iraq was allegedly trying to reopen its nuclear weapons program. In saying that, however, it specifies how the administration produced its own combination of propaganda and information. Rob Cordry on Comedy Central's fake news show The Daily Show dubbed this as infoganda. Brewer shows the censorship of media, the use of persuasive language, and the emphasis on Western idiosyncrasies all combined to make the war manifest. She goes further and explains the method in which international media corporations are linked in efforts to push a certain agenda. For instance, BBC and ITV, which are major UK media outlets, showed a degree of bias when reporting the pre-war incidents. Brewer concludes that in waging a global war on terror, promulgated a culture of fear which provided an emotional framework for a preventive war against Iraq. It all goes to prove that the American people were seduced in the run-up to the war and displays the superficiality of mainstream news channels. The book and the movie have demonstrated the inevitability of propaganda in war. What lesson that can be learned is that all conflicts throughout history have elements of propaganda, and thus we should not be so hasty to depict one side as good and one side as evil. What we should do is ensure that we scrutinize the words and actions of our political figures and foreign policies in the most objective manner possible to determine whether their actions correlate with the public image that is molded by propaganda. I would like to conclude that the dear viewers consider whether the invasion of Iraq was successful because of the weapons of mass destruction pretext, or rather, the American people lost a psychological war against media propaganda that was harbored by weapons of mass deception.